ZBA applications 22799 and 22800. Okay, so the planning board is being asked to comment and review on an application. It involves two properties on the south side of Ale Court, all the way at the easterly end of Ale Court and Centerport. These are proposals for two single-family dwellings. I believe the letter of denial came from the building department on this one. Under normal circumstances, the planning board probably wouldn't be asked to comment on these, save for some of the slope issues that are on the properties. We have talked about this with the staff in the briefings. We offer a planning board recommendation memo back to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which includes a few paragraphs and a few points. Coming right up. Right. Okay, so just one key observation here is that we see the actual denial before the Board of Appeals was really related to both the facial area and a setback requirement for some retaining walls that were being proposed. We don't see any variances or relaxations of the slope ordinance per se. What you see before you is the only thing that is being asked of the Board of Appeals. So at this point...
So I just want to clarify that point.
Sure.
So based upon the configuration of the property that's being proposed by the engineers for the applicant and the existing grade of the property, this application does not require any variances that would pertain to the steep slope ordinance.
Correct. It's only indirectly related due to the retaining walls. The formal variances required are related to the retaining walls only.
Okay, so it really removes a lot of the things that we would consider, looking at the town code and what the legislative intent was, let's say, of the steep slope ordinance. There are a number of things in there to look at, but it's not really within our purview right now. What we're really looking at is just the setbacks and size and scope of the retaining walls.
Correct, and so I
and that's the scope of what we're looking at.
Yeah, there may be some statutory requirements for a planning board review here, but primarily I think it's here due to the wishes of the Board of Appeals. And so under normal circumstances, the planning director might have a role here, but it's come straight to you for review and comment. So on that basis, the staff has prepared a draft recommendation memo back to the Board of Appeals. Mm-hmm. If the board wanted to do that or to adopt the recommendation as shown here. There's 5 different recommendations, or 5 different points, I guess.
You want to just go through them?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just go through them quickly.
Sure.
The board may choose or will choose to recommend that all areas south of the retaining walls be put into a permanent conservation area so future owners do not seek to install pools, etc. Heavily sloped areas, usually a conservation easement is a good mitigation for heavily sloped areas. The second point is...
and garages would be installed as part of the main structure.
Yep, that is one of the bullet points here.
Right.
That as an alternative perhaps to the aggregate retaining walls as proposed, there may be a design consideration where the house or a substantial foundation could be designed in such a way so as to provide the same function as a retaining wall, but it might be a way to reduce the overall square footage, facial square footage of those retaining walls.
For the purpose of this conversation, we'll say, and we'll let the planning board as a whole decide whether or not we have a consensus or not, but the planning board does choose to recommend.
And by the way, related to the garage, that could be an efficient solution to the garage and the retaining wall all in one.
I agree with Mr. Mandelic.
Yeah.
So as to points 1 and 2, just make sure that we say we do recommend, not we may choose. We do choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Good.
Another one of
Okay.
the recommendations is, as you can see from the plan, the proposed retaining walls sort of are bisected by the property line going between them. that right there it triggers a variance. There's a 5-foot setback requirement for those retaining walls. Planning is making the recommendation if the Board of Appeals chooses to grant the application, that they might want to require an access or maintenance agreement between both properties just for future maintenance of that retaining wall structure.
Well, again, I think we would want to definitively recommend that.
Okay.
So I think we would choose to accept that suggestion and put that
So
into the recommendation.
Why don't we use the language will recommend or
Yes.
does recommend?
Yes. Thank you.
Got it.
Now, we did receive some correspondence about the Eagle's Nest, which is in close proximity to this property, and that it's very important to a lot of people, and that this property could be within the Eagles' area of where they feed and live. So I do see that we addressed that in the recommendation, where we are going to recommend that the zoning board, if they do grant this application, be required to consult with the New York State DEC prior to and during construction to ensure compliance with the New York State Bald Eagle Conservation Plan. Now, I see there's someone in the audience that, and I'm going to, there's not a public hearing, but if you'd like to come up and make a comment, you can. Yes.
Do you mind if I approach?
Sure. Sure, no problem. I assume you're here to address the Eagles?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can keep these calendars? Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so I can give you 3 minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Board, for
welcome.
hearing me for a few moments.
You're welcome. State your name and address and affiliation.
My name is Robert Schwartz. I live at 16 Westfield Drive in Centerport. I live approximately 395 feet from the Bald Eagle's Nest. The property that you're talking about today falls within the New York State Bald Eagle Conservation Plan. I've included a copy of this from the DEC in that building near the nest is not acceptable under the DEC, under 660 feet. I included a Google map showing that it's less than 660 feet from the nest to where the building is. The nest is actually at eye level with the buildings that are being proposed. I'm not so concerned about the buildings. I'm more concerned about the trees being cut down and the area, because what we're doing is removing the habitat of the eagles. They're very susceptible for abandoning nests. We are so lucky here to have these eagles in Centerport. My group is over 21,000 members strong. I have 500,000 members on my website. There's a lot of people rooting for these eagles and the special, unique opportunity that Centerport has to view these eagles. We have schools coming to see the eagles, colleges using it as a reference. We have a live cam showing the nest live 24/7. And this construction will directly affect the eagle's habitat. And I just want to read a couple of quick things from the Bald Eagle Foundation of the United States. Disturb means to cause, injure an eagle, a decrease in its productivity, and will cause nest abandonment. Disturb also covers impacts as the result from human-induced alterations such as tree clearing around the nest site, even when the eagles are not present. If upon the eagle's return, such alterations are therefore within or interrupts normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering of habits, may cause injury, death, or nest abandonment. My worry is that the work that's being constructed directly affects the eagles themselves. They use this area to collect branches for their nests, to hunt, and by removing the natural habitat, we risk the loss of these eagles. We've been very successful for 5 years. Right now, she's sitting on 3 eggs, which is an amazing accomplishment. It's not typical. So far, to year to date, 5 years is nest has been productive. We've raised 10 eaglets that have left Centerport to help populate the area. like I said, there's a tremendous following. We've raised, because of these eagles, in the calendars that you've seen, we've raised $50,000 for wildlife rescue directly because of these eagles. There is a number of, like I said, of schools that are using this as a reference, the unique opportunity that Centerport has. And to do any work near the nest at eye level, in my opinion, would cause them to abandon the nest. So it should be taken into consideration the fact that, that we may lose this opportunity.
So are there times of the year that would be better for certain types of construction?
Necessary absolute construction has to happen during the time period of October through December, and that's it. That's the only time that the eagles will not use the nest. And that's when they did a project recently on Lakeside Drive, which is right below the nest. The DEC stopped the construction project and had the town only do that work during non-nesting periods, incubation periods. But I feel this is even more special than that because, like I said, when the eagles are in their nest, they look out, and the first thing they're going to see is all their land, their trees missing. And we want to conserve this. This is such a unique gift that we have. I can promise you there isn't a town on Long Island that has this opportunity. And for us to take the risk to do this would be a disservice to the children of this town, the people that care about these eagles, and all the good that's come from these eagles. Say one more thing. The town declared September 25th, the town of Huntington declared that on September 25th, every year from here on in, it's the Bald Eagles of Centerport Day.
I mean, I don't think any of us want eagles to be harmed. Is there a way that we could do construction without the eagles being harmed?
Not this close to the nest.
Is it the tree removal or the noise?
It's the tree removal, yeah. They use those trees as a buffer for wind that actually protects the nest from blowing over. That line of trees up there, when the wind comes from the south to the north, that line of trees helps buffer the nest from blowing down.
Mr. Genoway, are we privy to the tree removal plan?
From his house, from the houses that are proposed to the nest is 593 feet. The DEC requires it to be 660 feet.
Well, we are in our now, this decision is going to be made by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we're recommending them to look at certain things. Included in our recommendation is that, as I read before, is that they consult with the New York State DEC prior to and during construction, if it were to be allowed, to ensure compliance with the New York State Bald Eagle Conservation Plan.
I understand
so
that.
that's being, we definitely recognize and everyone appreciates, it's well known throughout Huntington how important that eagle's nest is.
Sarah, I just would like to point something out. So the second, if you look at the plan, so the retaining walls are proposed as close to the house as possible. One of our planners pointed this out earlier. So it's not like they were proposing the retaining walls all the way back here, and they want all this lawn and swimming pools and everything. They're really just getting it in there so that they can build the house or the houses, and then back here behind the retaining walls, I would just like to point out that the second recommendation from this planning board to the zoning board that we've drafted says the planning board may recommend that all areas south of the retaining walls be put into permanent conservation areas so that future owners do not seek to install pools or accessory structures in those heavily sloped areas. So that again speaks to, I think, a lot of the treed area that you're referring to. And I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I see them every day because they are essentially in my backyard, and I see where they go. It's from my house. I'm way on top of Centerport Hill. I'm on top. I see they go to those trees. That's where they go for safety. Yeah. When they're not in the nest, when the father is out keeping an eye on the nest for predators, they're up in those trees. They're up in that area. We have owls up there and red-tailed hawks that are nesting in those trees now as well.
So are you saying then what the New York State Bald Eagle Conservation Plan, this is not in compliance with that?
Not in compliance. 660 feet is the minimum distance, and that's just a number. It really, Centerport in itself is so unique that removing these trees, there's not a lot of other trees, especially grouped the way that is, in Centerport. We're removing their habitat.
So, David Genoway, so we're putting it in here that we're recommending that they comply with that code. We don't know right now if it does or doesn't. Right, okay. And the 10 eaglets, do we know where they went?
What they do essentially is they leave, after 3 months of the father teaching them how to hunt and provide for itself, they leave the nest and they go north. And they follow a pack of bald eagles down the Hudson River. They follow the ice flow. And so they can continue to catch fish. And when it warms up, and if they're old enough, after 4.5 years, they'll start to look for a mate and build another nest. Now, this is after 25 years of New York State creating this, what they call hacking program, where they've brought in eggs from Alaska and Tennessee, and they've created this environment where the eagles are back now to Long Island, where they were removed, essentially based on DDT, the use of chemicals. So it's something so unique. I just asked the board.
We're doing what you're asking us to do. You have to understand that the ZBA is a separate board. They're going to make their own decision. They're going to have a public hearing on this. And I don't know if they had one already, I believe. Did you speak at it?
I did not. No, I just found out about this.
Okay, well, let me ask, Mr. Genoway, will the ZBA be having another public hearing on this?
The requirement for a public hearing may be closed. It should be determined whether or not the record is open or not. If not, the memo from this board, with sole communication left.
Okay, so what we're recommending is what you're recommending. We're recommending that the zoning board take this into consideration, consult with the New York State Bald Eagle Conservation Plan.
Okay, I just want to say one more thing and I'm done.
Right.
Just please take into consideration the uniqueness that Centerport is. We have something that most towns don't. We have a migration flow through this area that's very unique. I'm a beekeeper. I understand the environment really well. When the environment changes, the bees die. So the same thing with the eagles. If they don't have their environment just right with the fish and everything set in specific terms, they'll disappear again, and that's the end of them. And it's too late. The house is built, they won't come back.
So let me ask you a question again.
Yes,
you indicated when you first came up how far you live from the nest. How
Yes.
far is that?
384 feet.
384 feet.
That's correct.
But you are much closer than where these buildings are going.
Correct, but I'm here 35 years, I live in my house. They came after me, found this location, and made a nest there. But now we're going to change the habitat based on what they see. If they see something that they don't like the removal of specific habitat, they'll abandon the nest.
All right, I just want to clarify
Absolutely.
how close you are to the nest.
Yep, just please take into consideration the uniqueness that Centerport has. We have
Right.
brackish water coming in from that area.
No, it's fair to say that even though you're within that, that you were pre-existing to the eagles coming in.
Yes.
And now this is the territory that they live in and how they've been functioning. So we
That's right,
understand that.
now we're changing that on them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything more that you want from this board?
I just want them to consider.
We're doing that.
Yeah, just consider the fact, not just this one idea of a house or two houses or a lot or removal of trees, but to look at Centerport in a whole.
Yeah.
Because it's uniqueness. It's different than every other town. Yeah. It has to be looked upon, when something's approved, it has to be looked at in a big picture because it affects all the wild. We have eels in our pond that no one else has. We have ducks that migrate that come nowhere else but to Centerport because the brackish water that comes from fresh water into the salt water, it meets at that pond right there. So we have a super unique scenario, and I'm afraid that we're going to mess it up.
Well, I don't think there should be any construction if it's going to harm the eagles, so I agree with you.
So we had that window you were talking about was October through when?
Typically through November, December is when they start nesting again. They bring all the branches back to the nest. They've gotten the eagles out, and they're free, and they essentially take a vacation. They work 8 months out of the year to raise eagles, you should come down to the bridge one day. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised.
No, we're all moved.
Yeah,
I think
I've
you can
seen
tell,
them.
but
Yeah.
we have
Limited
landowner
jurisdiction.
with property
Yeah.
rights and whatever, so we're
I
trying.
understand.
So if there's, October through the spring or whatever, that he can do his major whatever the major construction
October through
is.
December is really the time construction.
October to December.
Yeah, that's the time construction can take place. Otherwise, they're at the nest, and they'll watch what they're doing. They'll see what they're doing.
All right, so we're doing what you're asking us to
Thank
do.
you,
The
sir.
zoning board has asked us for this recommendation, so this is going to be a part of their record. They're going to take it into consideration. We
I
have
appreciate it.
asked them to consult with the New York
Yeah.
State. So I really think, it sounds to me like we're doing what you're asking us to do.
Thank you.
And thank you for your
Thank you very much.
passion
Thank you.
and your
Appreciate it.
concern
Thank you
for
for your
the
work.
Eagles. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Come down, I'd love to give you guys a personal tour. To see a bald eagle fly 5 feet over your head, it changes you. It does, it changes you. And it changes, just look at the Facebook group, the Bald Eagles of Centerport.
Seeing your posts.
Read
Yeah.
the stories. I mean,
Inspiring, right?
through COVID, it got so many people through COVID. How many veterans come down and see these eagles and say, oh my God, I'm complete. Sit there with a blanket and a wheelchair watching the eagles. It's unique. So thank you
Thank
again
you
for your
so
time.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, any other business, Mr. Genoway? Yes? But we're done. This is nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, moving right along in our miscellaneous section, Mr. Chairman,